Hi, I'm Mike, and today I wanted to talk about how you can study material much more effectively using a technique that I like to call the alphabet picnic method. What's the alphabet picnic method? Well, oftentimes when you're taking a long trip with kids and you want to distract them in, the car or wherever, then somebody will say, hey, let's play the alphabet picnic game. And the alphabet picnic game works like this. The first person names something that starts with A. It can be anything. Usually it's food because it's centered around going on a picnic, but it could be anything. So the first person names something that starts with A, and the second person has to name the thing that the first person named and then add something that starts with a B. So the first person will say, I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring apples. And the second person will say, I'm going to bring apples and bananas. And the third person will say, I'll bring apples, bananas, and cherries. And the fourth person will say, apples, bananas, cherries, and donuts. And the fifth person will say, apples, bananas, cherries, donuts, and eggs. And the sixth person will say, apples, bananas, cherries, donuts, eggs, and fruit. And the seventh person will say, apples, bananas, cherries, donuts, eggs, fruit, and garlic. And the eighth person will say, apples, bananas, cherries, donuts, eggs, fruit, garlic, and hamburgers. And what happens is, by the time the group of people reaches the end of the alphabet, pretty much everybody in the group has memorized that list of 26 things. How can this happen if nobody sits down with index cards and nobody studies and nobody reviews? Through the process that I like to call layered cumulative reviewing. In other words, we keep repeating the initial things, but then we keep adding onto those initial things all the new things. And by using this technique, we get all the benefits of strict repetition without a lot of the boredom that's associated with it because we keep on changing the material that we're repeating. In other words, we're using repetition, but we're making it interesting for ourselves. How can we use this to study? Good question. Let's say we're working with a pile of math cards and we're trying to learn a bunch of different solutions to different types of geometry problems. I don't know. So we look at the first problem. And we see the question, and we understand how to do it. We go over it a few times, and we learn it. We put it off to the side. We go on to the second card. We now learn that one. Then we immediately go back to the first card, and we say, hey, do we still know this? Do you still remember this? I mean, it was only a minute ago, but do you still know it? So now you do the first card and the second card. Then you add on a third card. You learn that. Then you do the first card, the second card, and the third card. Then you add on a fourth card, you do the first card, second card, third card, fourth card, and then you add on a fifth card. You do first card, second card, third card, fourth card, fifth card. Now you've got all 5 cards, and they're pretty good, and you know them. Put them off to the side and start again with a new group. So you do the first card, second card, second card, third card, and so on until you get up to 5. Then you put those aside and you go back to the first group of 5 cards. You look through those and you see, gee, have I gotten any of these wrong? Have I forgotten any of these since I studied them? And then you move on to the second group. Now you're ready for the third group. So instead of just going straight through all of your studying, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just going straight through and kind of getting sort of a vague idea of what everything is about, you want to go over the first thing, do the second thing, and then back to the first thing. Then do the first thing, the second thing, and the third thing, and then back to the first thing again. And you keep on adding to the end, but repeating the beginning. Now, I wouldn't repeat groups of more than really 5 or 6, because after a while it gets to be unmanageable. But once you've repeated the first couple cards 5 or 6 times, you can start leaving them off and then focusing on new cards. So when you get to the 5th card, you do cards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you can just start doing cards 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cards 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're always getting that repetition of the first ones, and you're always adding on the later ones. So you're always going sort of forward, backward, forward, backward. What does this have to do with the alphabet picnic game? Well, in the alphabet picnic game, we memorize all the things in the alphabet by just repeating them and adding one each time. We do the same thing with these index cards. We start with a pile of cards, we learn the first one, then we learn the second one, and then back to the first one to review it again. Try this technique. It's one of the most powerful things that I teach my students. It's extremely effective in terms of cutting down the amount of time it takes for you to study things and really absorb things, because it replaces the typical process of studying where you just go sort of in a straight line, straight through everything, with a much more ordered approach to studying where you learn something and then you sort of balance it on top of the other things and then you make sure that you still know the other things. This technique is much more effective and much more efficient than the typical ways high school students usually come up with to study. Give it a try today and see how much more efficient it can make you when you're trying to make use of the limited amount of time that you have to really get all your homework done and learn everything that you need to learn.